Oh, I think his closing argument is support me, I'm gonna win, support me, and if you don't, I'm gonna fuck you up.
Jamal, what I'm coming off of having done a bunch of TV where I
Man, you were
watched.
kicking butt on that TV screen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nayyera.
Well, some of it was realizing that when you're there not to play along, you're there to represent and voice perspectives and something people otherwise might not hear. But it's this idea of Trump says something ridiculous when there's real bad things happening. And that ridiculous thing gets not only one, but maybe two segments. And yes, do I think him talking about a dude's junk is crude? Absolutely. Do I think that the McDonald's thing is overblown? Sure. But that's nothing compared to the real challenges and issues that we're dealing with today. And when we get distracted in dissecting this and that and trying to insult him back, I just feel like we're doing a total disservice to the fact that this is a very, very tight election and very real things are happening.
It's the sideshow circus, right? And so, like, instead of us paying attention to the main act, which is that he just threatened to turn people he considers to be enemies of the state into military targets, FBI targets, IRS targets. He just threatened that, and not just journalists, or although he said that he's going to straighten the press out, but like everybody, like any individual citizen that he doesn't like. If a journalist doesn't give him their sources, he wants to put them in jail. I mean, he's going full on authoritarian. I am the state is I, the state is me. He's going full on authoritarian.
The counter to that is, we need to protect American democracy. Again, that's such an esoteric argument. His closing argument.
Yeah.
How would you describe his closing argument before I jump in on that? Because I want to hear your take on this.
I think his closing argument is support me, I'm going to win, support me, and if you don't, I'm going to fuck you up. Right? His argument is, I'm coming for all the people who are not with me, and I'm going to win, so you need to But
this is also, it's not just him
and get on board.
He has created an identity of we will fuck you up. All of you that have been stepping out of line, who've been asking for things that I don't get, that maybe technically according to the law you should be getting. Donald Trump is now this cult of personality solution for this anger to channel it. And it is a very real, potent thing. And I know, because I've seen this where I grew up, right? This is like the playground justice of how things work. It's not, the argument isn't rule of law. It is very much might makes right. And I feel like something's being taken from me, so I'm going to kick your ass. And there are people who have signed up. I have heard women say, just trust him, he has a plan. Just trust him, he has a plan. And I personally couldn't give up a sense of thinking and hand it over to some dude, but people are willing to do this because they feel like he will restore something to them that they've lost.
No, they absolutely believe that. They believe that he's going to restore something they've lost. They believe that he's going to control the people that they're afraid of, right? He's going to be the one. I was just listening to this thing. He's been coming after immigrants and saying that immigrants are the reason why housing prices are going up. So I'm listening to the radio the other day, and there is a woman on the radio who's an economist, and she is just putting the lie to this entire thing. She's like, listen, here are the three things. Number one, immigrants actually don't buy houses. Especially people who are here not legally. They don't buy houses. You know why? They don't fill out all that federal paperwork, right? Like, who's going to start swearing things in documents if they're here without documentation, without papers, right? Number two, so immigrants go into the housing market, the rental market. Well, it turns out that actually most immigrants live in either multi-family or multi-generation family households. So you have 2 or 3 families living together to save money so they can go do something else. So actually immigrants have a lower draw on the housing stock than everyone else because they're living in like households with more people in them than most people do.
But Jamal, it's not about
the
last
facts. One is
it's not about the facts.
Right. The last one is if you actually want to have affordable housing, deporting and sending a bunch of immigrants home is not the way to do it, because who do you think is building all that affordable housing? Right? How do you keep labor costs down to build property to build houses and apartment buildings if you're getting rid of all of the labor that typically is working in these housing sites. So it's just, it doesn't make any sense. None of this is about facts.
Exactly. Food prices being low and the American agriculture economy, who are the people who line up every year saying, please, federal government, give us more work permits and work visas? Farmers. Like, please give us the ability to import and export labor. We don't want to house people year round. This is seasonal labor. Give us a pathway. Just give us the visas so we can bring this person here, let them come in, and then let them go back. There are solutions.
Because if they really wanted to shut down, if they really wanted to deal with immigration and shut it down, they would go talk to Archer Daniels Midland, right? They would go talk to ADM. They would go talk to all the big agro companies that are attracting people and bringing them in the country and having them work on this stuff. But they don't. You know why?
Side, right?
Americans like cheap stuff. Americans like cheap stuff. And the only two ways for us to have cheap stuff, low-cost labor or trade where we're bringing in imported things from countries with low-cost labor. That's it. And if he wants to put tariffs on all goods that are being imported, and then wants to deport everybody who's helping to keep the labor costs reasonable, you know what? We're all going to be paying $25 for white T-shirts.
Yep. The poultry farms in the South are almost entirely undocumented people. And wow, you do not want to have to work in a poultry farm. Let me tell you that much. They also want to lower the age, right? Sure. Let 13 and 14-year-olds legally do this instead of going to school. That's another conversation. But the point, right? It's not about the facts. Somebody in Maine whose number one voting issue, sitting in Maine, number one voting issue is the challenge on the southern border. That is 1,000% about feelings and about what you think is happening to a world that is new to you, is scary to you, and is frankly feels like it's at your doorstep, but it's not your day-to-day reality.
Well, let's talk about the macroeconomic problems, though, because we don't talk about this. We want to blame things on people who are brown or who are different than us. We want to blame things on women, the conversation we were having with Melanie Newman. We want to blame things on other people who are not what we think of as the norm. The reality is we should be blaming it on software, right? But nobody's mad at software. But the reality is more jobs are going to be displaced by robots, by software, by AI than anything else. And so we are having an economy where we had trade dislocation in the 80s and 90s and people went away, jobs went away because of trade. And then now in the 2000s, it's software and robots that are eliminating jobs. So you used to be able to have, I don't know how many people built a car, and now you just got a few people who are monitoring the robots who are building cars.
So
and instead of us being mad at the companies, or instead of us being mad at the executives who are taking bigger bonuses because of the increases in productivity, we're mad at the fact that there's a woman who is now over the shop that you worked on, the shop floor that you've been working on your whole life. And maybe that woman is a brown woman, and that's even worse.
Oh, well, apparently part of Trump's closing message and, last, what do you call it? The closing, the final message. Apparently part of that is send Elon Musk, Mr. Autonomous Vehicles, Mr. Electric Vehicles, send him around working class Pennsylvania. Because apparently he's the messenger that is going to resonate. He resonates because of his sexism, because of his racism, because of his online trolling. But if you look at everything he's done, him and Peter Thiel, for automation, for eliminating working class jobs, for eliminating protections for workers, like that is literally the person you can look at and say, oh, this guy, putting this guy in charge is going to be a bad idea. But here's the thing that connects it.
And look, I don't know these guys. Let me just say this. Yeah, go ahead.
The thing that connects it, you do have a bunch of Silicon Valley bros, founders who are actually actively saying, democracy doesn't work. Let us, the founders, the ones who have innovation and ideas and then the money, let us decide and use technology to help manage and navigate and control people. They don't want it to be human beings making these choices. They want it to be them and the products they're creating. That is the thread that goes with Trump's democracy and why a lot of these tech bros are really attracted, not only to his messaging, his narrative, but why they're actively supporting his campaign.
And let me just say this. I don't know these guys personally. I don't know what they say when the camera's on, but let's just not forget Peter Thiel and Elon Musk were raised for part of their very early lives in apartheid South Africa. Yep. They're South African. Apartheid didn't go away till 1994, right? So that was 30 years ago, right? So they were raised in part in apartheid South Africa.
And what do you think they feel like they lost?
Lost on me.
What sense of loss do they have?
That's true.
What sense of loss do they might they be trying to reconcile now? Yeah, apparently they don't.
So even people who may feel differently, I'm not saying all South Africans are bad and all the South Africans who were raised during that period don't get it. I think, though, that when you come to the United States and part of your political agenda is siding up with somebody who demonizes immigrants, who demonizes others, who wants to restrict laws and rights for people, I think that raises the question about how you got there, right? How did you mentally get to a place where you think that this person is the one who ought to be in charge of America? It might feel familiar. That's all I'm saying.
You know, we know what the models are that Trump and Elon Musk can look at. They look at Russia. They look at South Africa. They tell us this. They tell us who they admire. So we just got to listen with ears wide open and not think that any economist is going to change people's minds. The change is going to happen because we show up at the polls.
We got to show up at the polls. This is the hour. And I think so here's my take on the election before we go. My take on the election right now is there are going to be men who cross over. Some of them are Democrats who cross over and vote for Donald Trump. There are going to be women, Republican women who cross over and vote for Kamala Harris. The person who beats that spread will be the next president of the United States. I think that's probably what we're going to come down to.
Let's see
how many people can you get to cross the street and vote for your side. Yeah.
We'll find out. All right, Jamal, you and I will catch up.